James, can I just confirm that you will count me in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I'll confirm that we're live, Chair, if that's okay. Thank you. Good stuff. I'm from Yorkshire, Councillor Quigley. He was going to drive behind in the big car. That's me. That's me. Get back for the Yorkshire comment, Councillor Quigley. Me neither.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Councillor Dave Pidwell. I'm the Chair of Planning, and I'd like to welcome you to this virtual planning committee hosted by Bassett Law District Council. The government passed emergency legislation to do with the COVID crisis, and that gives councils the power to hold meetings virtually and for councillors to vote on issues even though they're not actually present in the room. Should explain that tonight's meeting is a rearranged meeting from last Wednesday. Due to a technical error, we did not publish the detailed agenda on time. By law, we had to give 5 working days notice, and we did not do that, so the issue was deferred until tonight. My apologies for that, because we know that people get very invested in the applications. There's a lot riding on them, and you've had to wait an extra week for the decisions. I'd imagine that most members of the public who are listening or might be listening to this are interested in one or the other of the applications. We have 2 tonight, one in Harworth, one in Sterton with Steeple, and we will get to those, all being well, in about 10 minutes, but please bear with us because we have some business to conduct first. I will now do a roll check to make sure that everyone is connected. So I'll start with the councillors. Councillor Challoner.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Charlesworth.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Fielding.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Freeman.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Oxby.
Present, Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Quigley.
Present.
Councillor Richardson.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Sanders.
Good evening, Chair. Present.
Thank you. Councillor Schuller. Not yet. Councillor Tomlinson.
Present, Mr. Chairman,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
And Councillor Brand. Is Councillor Brand with us?
No, she's not joined the meeting, Chair.
She hasn't. Okay. So that means that there are 10 councillors tonight who will at the moment be voting on the matters, although the other 2 may well join us. Okay, and perhaps I could introduce officers who are assisting tonight. Introduce Mr. John Crozak, who's the head of planning. You connected with us?
Present, Chairman, thank you.
The Councillor Solicitor Steve Wormwold.
Yes, present, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. And both those will give us advice as we ask it to help us make our determinations. The committee clerk tonight is Cara.
Present, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Cara will record the votes and also take the minutes. We also have a facilitator tonight, Mr. Lavender.
Present, Chair, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lavender and someone else has the envious duty of making sure that we stay connected and that things run smoothly from a technological point of view. So from time to time you might hear his voice or another person's voice if there are difficulties, and then we will decide what to do in light of those difficulties. Okay, so moving on then to the agenda. The first is, do we have any apologies?
Thank Chair. Apologies from Councillor Brand if she doesn't join the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. Mr. Wormald, do we have any?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Challoner declared a pecuniary interest in the second planning application, the Burcoats application. Likewise, Councillor Schuler declared a non-pecuniary interest in the same item, and I record that just in case she does join the meeting at some point.
Thank you very much. I should also mention 2 things. First of all the members have received communication from the chair of Sterton Parish Council. I mention that for the record, and that statement isn't actually on the public file for the planning application, so that's why I mention it. And I should also mention one for myself, that when I was doing the site visit to the solar farm application site, a member of the public came and spoke to me, and I had to explain that I couldn't listen to what they were saying about the application. Okay. Agenda item number 3 is minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of July this year, which are found on pages 5 to 10 of the agenda. So as usual, I will go around members in alphabetical order to determine if you are in favour, against or wish to abstain, that these represent an accurate record of that meeting. Starting with Councillor Challoner.
I will have to abstain on that, Chair, because I wasn't present at that meeting, so I didn't take part in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Charlesworth.
I'm for.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
For.
Councillor Oxby.
For. Thank you.
Councillor Quigley.
For.
Councillor Richardson.
For.
Councillor Sanders.
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Tomlinson.
Councillor Tomlinson, can you unmute your microphone, please?
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
For.
Thank you. And so am I, so they are accepted as a true record. Agenda item number 4 is minutes of the planning consultation group meetings held between the 13th and the 27th of July this year. I'll explain to members of the public that the planning consultation group is in effect a subgroup of this committee, and they advise officers on minor matters that are before us, before them for determination. You find those minutes on pages 11 to 19 of the agenda, and these minutes are provided tonight for information. Agenda item number 5 is the outstanding minutes list, page 21 of the agenda. There are 2 items on that, and they have return dates when that work will be reported to the committee. Well, one final thing before we move on. I'd like to tell the committee that Dylan Jones, who was the major project officer, and indeed who wrote the 2 reports that are up for consideration this evening, has now left the authority. He came as an agency worker some 18 months ago, and it suited him, and it certainly suited us, to renew that contract on a regular basis. But I'm pleased to now say that he's found an established position in Leicester, and I'm sure I speak for the committee in wishing him well in that new venture. Agenda item number 6A is the public interest test. Ms. Beverly Alderson Sandbrook, Head of Regeneration, has deemed that all the reports on the agenda are not confidential. So we come to the first application tonight, which is an application for full planning permission for the installation and operation of a solar farm on land northwest and south of Field Farm, Wood Lane, Sterton Steeple. Papers for this can be found on pages 25 to 51 of the agendas. And can I call upon Mr. Proser, please, to introduce this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to confirm, are members able to view the slides that I'm presenting on the screen at the moment?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, clearly, John.
Thank you. Full planning permission is proposed for the installation of a solar farm comprising an array of ground-mounted solar PV panels and associated infrastructure. The application site consists of 97 hectares of agricultural land which lies between the villages of Sterton Steeple, South Wheatley, North Leverton and Clarborough. That slide shows the application site outlined in red and shows the position of the site in relation to the surrounding settlements. There are 4 public footpaths in the vicinity of the application site, with the Sheffield to Lincoln railway line adjoining its southeast corner. The nearest public highways to the site are the A620, which passes the northwest of the site, Wheatley Road to the northeast, Gainsborough Road to the northeast, Leverton Road to the east and Retford Road to the south. This slide shows the proposed layout of the site. Access to the site will be taken from Wheatley Road via Wood Lane. It's proposed to provide a comprehensive landscaping scheme, including hedgerow planting, hedgerow tree planting, woodland planting and grassland planting. This slide shows a typical solar panel as proposed. So as you can see on the slide, the proposed solar panels would be between 2.4 metres and 3 metres in height, and would be set at an angle between 15 and 25 degrees. So moving on to some photographs of the actual site itself. This slide shows a photograph of the site access from Wheatley Road. And that's Wood Lane on the left, so that will provide the access to the site. This is a view from Wood Lane looking west across the site. This photograph was taken further south from Wood Lane and again is looking in a westerly direction towards the site. This view is taken looking west from a farm track off Wood Lane. So the application site lies both on the left and right hand side of the picture. This photograph is looking in a northeasterly direction from High House Road to the south of the site. There's a view from the southeastern corner of the site looking in a northwesterly direction over the application site itself. This is a view from Fields Farm, which appears in the centre of the site, and this is looking in a southeasterly direction. And this is a view from the northern part of the site, looking in a northeasterly direction, and you can obviously see West Burton Power Station in the background there. Moving on to the report. Consultee comments are summarised on pages 28 and 29 of the report, and it must be noted that no statutory consultees have objected to the development proposed. Sterton and Steeple Parish Council have raised objections to the proposal, and these are summarised on pages 29 and 30 of the report. Wheatley Parish Council have commented that they are not opposed to solar farms generally, but have raised concerns, and these are summarised on page 30. 27 letters of objection have been received from members of the public, and the matters raised are set out on pages 30 and 31 of the report. The report makes it clear that this scheme has to be considered under the planning balance test as contained in paragraph 11 of the NPPF, as the Council's adopted core strategy policies are considered to be out of date. This means that the development should be considered under the planning balance test and should be approved unless the harm arising from the scheme would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The report identifies that the main benefit of the scheme is the contribution that it makes towards the environmental objective of the NPPF, primarily by having a form of energy that minimises pollution and helps to mitigate the effects of climate change and moving towards a low carbon economy. The scheme has also been designed with biodiversity enhancements in mind, which are supported by the Wildlife Trust and also meet the environmental objectives of the NPPF. As detailed on page 37, the applicant has submitted a landscape and visual appraisal that assesses the impact of the proposal on the surrounding landscape. The report concludes that views of the site from the surrounding area, including villages, will not be substantially impacted. However, the proposal will alter the character of the area with a substantial effect noted up to 500 metres away from the site, with this impact diminishing significantly at 1 kilometre and further from the site. Given the scale of the proposal, the Council engaged an independent chartered landscape architect to assess the impact of the development, and as outlined on page 38 of the report, the conclusion was that the scheme would not have a substantial visual impact unless in very close proximity to the development, and the cumulative visual impact on the surrounding landscape would not be significant. On pages 39 and 40 of the report, it is described that the development would not result in an increase to flood risk elsewhere, and the scheme has been designed to ensure that runoff rates from the site will not increase beyond existing levels. The report outlines the proposed ecological enhancements on page 40, and both Natural England and Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust are content that the development will meet the requirements of the NPPF in this respect. Pages 42 and 43 of the report describe the impact of the proposal on highway safety. Objections have been received to the scheme on the grounds that it will increase traffic movements in the locality to an unacceptable level and reduce the enjoyment of walkers and horse riders using the public right-of-way network through and around the site. Once operational, the solar farm will generate very little traffic, with the occasional need for staff to visit the site to maintain equipment. The main period of activity on the site will be during the construction and decommissioning phases, with both of these separated by a timescale of up to 30 years. The report sets out that the submission of a construction management plan will ensure there's no conflict between commercial vehicles and users of the public right-of-ways, and concludes that development would not result in a demonstrable impact upon highway safety. To conclude, having considered the benefits of the development as outlined on pages 45 and 46 of the report, the scheme is recommended for approval subject to the conditions outlined from page 46 onwards. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Pidwell, can you unmute your microphone, please? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, my apologies for that. We have 5 speakers tonight who wish to speak on this application. Under the virtual committee arrangements, there are a variety of ways in which people can contribute, and I'll explain these as we get to each speaker. First speaker, though, is Councillor Naish, and I believe that Councillor Naish is going to speak to us in person. And hello, are you there? The arrangements, there are a variety of ways in which people can contribute.
Councillor Naish, can you turn off the live stream if it's on, or mute it? Thank you. Okay, Councillor. Okay, Chair, you can continue.
Okay. Councillor Naish, so you're connected, which is good, so welcome. You will have 3 minutes for your speech. I'm going to ask if Mr. Wormald will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining, and then at 3 minutes, I'm afraid you will be disconnected. So when you're ready, please start.
Thank you, Councillor Pidwell. So most members of the committee will be aware that this application has been in the pipeline for over 18 months. And in anticipation of submission, I distributed a survey to all households in the ward to poll local opinion. And so my purpose tonight really is just to share the highlights of that survey with you so that you can place subsequent statements in context. So a total of 103 households responded to that survey, which is roughly 11% of households in the area. And the vast majority of respondents were either strongly in favour or in favour of green energy production, so 75% of local residents in total, which broadly aligned with the numbers from the neighbourhood plan polling from 2015. 66% of respondents were supportive of solar energy production in the ward as the preferred mechanism for green energy, and that was followed by wind and biomass on 18% each. So strong support. But this particular proposal has proven far more divisive. So less than half, 43% of respondents were either strongly in favour or in favour of a solar farm on the proposed site, with 37% either strongly against or against, and 20% unsure. Critically, 73% of all respondents expressed concerns about the proposed development, including 64% of people who had previously described themselves as being either strongly in favour or in favour of green energy production. Now, there were several key themes that came out, but the two that stood out were as follows. Firstly, the loss of agricultural land. So it was concluded that a development of this nature should be constructed on non-productive land, was the wording of one respondee. And another said food is as important as power, due to a farm being lost in the process of this solar farm going ahead. And secondly, the size of the development. So one person said the size of this development seems unreasonable, and another commented much larger than other solar farms in the area. So I think in summary, there's clear appetite for green energy production in the ward, and solar energy production is the preferred approach.
30 seconds, Chair.
However, with only 43% of respondents either strongly in favour or in favour of a solar farm on the proposed site, it's important that some of the concerns raised this evening are considered. And if, as a council, we want to make sure that rural residents feel valued and recognise Basset Law's rural heritage, we can't simply ignore what they say. After all, they live in and know the landscape better than anyone else. And I therefore encourage committee members to think carefully about the written submissions and to consider this application in the context of known resident opinion.
Thank you. The second contribution tonight is from Sterton Steeple Parish Council, and Mr. Crozat's going to read out their comments. When you're ready, sir, please do.
Thank you, Chairman. So Sterton and Steeple Parish Council have set their objection out over several headings, so I'll just introduce each section under the heading. So firstly, overview of application. In terms of size and area, if granted, this will become one of the biggest industrial developments surrounding Sterton and Steeple, which is supposedly situated in mid-Nottinghamshire farmlands. It was noted that the surrounding area also includes the industrial facilities of West Burton Power Station and quarry site off Station Road, which totally engulfs the eastern aspect of the village. This application is based on the western aspect of the village, and due to its considerable size and location, will engulf most of the western view and amenity use of the village and surrounding villages as well. The application is not with the regional or local plan and cannot be considered to be innovative as it is not a proven resource in this location and will not contribute to the local economy. Flooding. The village has been severely flooded 3 times in the last decade from runoff water and further 6 flooding events over the last year. The application will only increase the frequency and severity of the flooding events without careful assessment and design intervention. A 200-acre site with 50 millimetres of rain in an hour will produce over 10 million gallons of water, 50,000 cubic metres, or 45,000 tonnes of water per hour if calculated using current building regulation specifications. It is accepted that this rainfall would fall on the site regardless of the use, but because of the panel installation, it's projected that 50% of the area will be covered over 100 acres. That means 5 million gallons of water will be prematurely displaced and create a runoff scenario. This application is on Morn Hill, but the impact will be felt in the centre of Sterton and Wheatley. Glare, no real impact assessment included. The design details provided suggest that most of the residents in direct sight of the site will observe glare for around 1.5 hours per day. Amenity value. The application does not acknowledge or recognise the current use of the area by the community for health and well-being, especially within a village location which is already heavily impacted by industrial development. Within the application, there are very large areas of land which, besides the bridleways and footpaths, are used regularly and freely by the community and contribute to the well-being of village residents and the wider community. The use of this area during lockdown has been a sanctuary for many and exercise is part of the government's strategy against obesity. Environmental. The land being proposed within the application is a multi-award-winning environmental farm. Conclusion. As stated, there is overwhelming support for renewable energy and it is supported, but it needs to be environmental progress and inclusive of the needs of the communities it engages with. This application at best is under-considered and at its worst disingenuous to the local villagers and really is simply offsetting the environmental benefits it's trying to deliver by not fully understanding the impact something of this scale and size can cause. North-facing aspect, uneven topography, sloping tree-shadowed landscape and naturally poor percolation. This translates into an inefficient site causing considered serious environmental impacts that are left unmanageable by this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also believe you're going to read the third one in a minute. And this is from the Neighbourhood Planning Group. As you read in the report, Sterton does have a neighbourhood plan. Because it's in review at the moment, is considered to carry planning weight. So, Mr. Krodak, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. The Sterton Ward Neighbourhood Plan, which was adopted in 2015, made reference to the core strategy of 2011, section 8.65 of the then current Basset Law Local Plan. This policy stressed the need to avoid unacceptable cumulative impact of local infrastructure developments. This section was heavily relied on by HM inspectors in rejecting 2 appeals against Basset Law District Council's rejection of applications to install wind farms on Morn Hill. They considered, inter alia, that the proposals were unacceptable as they would have added significantly to the existing visual impact of West Burton and Cotton coal-fired power stations and their associated pylons and cables. During the discussion on the new local plan in 2019, Sterton and Steeple Parish Council wrote to Basset Law District Council to request that this principle would be included in it, particularly in the context of the currently planned revision of the neighbourhood plan. I consider that the planned solar farm will make a major contribution to a similar unacceptable cumulative visual impact. This is additional to the unacceptable impact on the local amenity of the land and the increase of flood risk through the increased runoff, about which I have commented in my previous comments on this application. This is a rural area. We support measures to reduce the impact of climate change. We have all invested in some way towards the quality of life in the villages. This is why we live here. This development threatens the local environment and our quality of life. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And the fourth speaker tonight is, I'm not quite sure if it's Mr. Evans or Mrs. Evans, but whichever it is, welcome. And I think that Mr. Krozak is going to read that out as well.
I am indeed. It is been submitted by Mr. and Mrs. Evans for clarity, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Regarding the planning application referenced, I would like to formally raise our objections. Our primary reason for this objection is on the grounds that as a regular and frequent horse riders, we fear that the amenity and recreational use of the bridleways situated on the proposed solar farm will create a significant change to our amenity use and safety of the provision we currently enjoy. Secondly is the wildlife we see. Our question is focusing on the small herd of deer and the owls that nest in the trees as we go around. I note that the deer fencing is going to be installed, which means the herd will be displaced, which is particularly concerning, as this is a breeding herd which relies on its territory as part of its herd status. The tree survey which has been submitted suggests that some trees have been omitted. Does this mean we will lose nesting sites for owls as well? Thirdly, as a migraine sufferer and one of the closest houses to the proposed facility, we have real concerns about the potential glare from the panels at certain times of the day. We feel this application has failed to consider the current use of the area and how much the local community relies on this area for exercise, even more so in the recent lockdown. It provides a real risk of flooding as it feeds into areas which are affected by the rapid runoff from such a large-scale installation to local villages, particularly Oswald Beck, which we live next to. This has been flooded over 6 times last winter already, to varying degrees of severity, twice into the Wheatley Road. The significance of this is that the high flow of water from Oswald Beck that stalls Wheatley Beck, which is complete consequently, as it did on the 7th of November this year, causes severe disruption and flooding to the centre of the village, notably the school. The application states it did not create flood risk as it is not in flood zone. Clearly, this is disingenuous because it is situated on Morn Hill and feeds into local flood zones. 200 acres of solar panels is only going to add to the flooding issues we are witnessing. This is an application purporting environmental benefits but delivering environmental damage. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker is Mr. Mott, who is the agent for the developers. And we have an audio recording which Mr. Lavender is going to play us. So when you're ready, Mr. Lavender, please play it.
Thank you, Chair.
This statement is made by Andrew Mott, the agent, on behalf of the applicant Elgin Energy. The development is a ground-mounted solar farm with an export capacity of 49.9 megawatts, located on agricultural land to the southwest of West Burton Power Station. Permission is sought for a temporary period of 30 years. The solar farm will be fenced with deer fencing, although all public rights-of-way remain open and accessible. Substantial areas of landscaping are proposed, including nearly 1 kilometre of new hedgerows, 38 hedgerow trees, 0.6 hectares of woodland, and grassland planting, including a traditional grassland mix to be grazed by livestock and wildflower mix in the margins adjoining the footpaths. The UK is legally bound through the Climate Change Act to reduce carbon emissions by 80% by 2050. The development would contribute towards meeting these requirements and would also be fully supported by all energy policy, as it would assist in replacing outdated energy infrastructure and facilitate the move to a low-carbon economy. The development will generate around 50,000 megawatt hours of electricity per year, the equivalent to the average annual consumption of 15,000 households. Considerable care has been taken in the design of the development to avoid unacceptable environmental and amenity effects. The development is not in or close to any national landscape or ecology designations and does not significantly affect the setting of any designated heritage assets. Its location in open countryside ensures that residential amenity effects are acceptable, and the proposed grazing of the land with the solar farm ensures agricultural activities continue. The applicant held a pre-application meeting with the council in January 2018 and a public exhibition in May 2019. The timings have allowed the design and layout to be amended following comments raised and the various environmental assessments undertaken. Key design changes included the removal of panels from the large field to the northeast to reduce visual impact, and from a field in the northwest to minimise impacts on habitats suitable for reptiles. The applicant has continued to work with the council and key consultees to ensure that key issues raised during the consideration of the application have been resolved. A key consideration for large solar farms is landscape and visual impact, and so a robust landscape and visual appraisal form part of the application. The council sought professional external landscape advice on this, which agreed with the conclusions reached in the submitted appraisal and supported approval of the application. This application is brought before the committee with a recommendation for approval. There are no objections raised by any of the council's consultees on material planning considerations, including landscape, flooding, ecology and heritage. Planning decision-making includes balancing the benefits of a development against its impacts. When the numerous significant benefits of the development are weighed against any minor adverse impacts, the planning balance weighs heavily in favour of the development, and I respectfully urge for the application to be approved.
Thank you. Thank you for playing that. That does complete the contributions from the floor. So now it's for the committee to discuss the matter, and how we do it is each councillor has 3 opportunities to speak. The first 2 rounds are to raise questions, and the third round is to make any observations or concluding comments should they wish to. So I'll start with Mr. Challoner, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Do you have any questions?
Just basically, the question is that the proposed site, is it going to replace the amount of energy that has obviously been displaced from the closure of Cotton Power Station and also the proposed closure or side of the coal-fired side at West Burton? Will this be a contributing amount of energy as to what has been taken away?
Mr. Krozak, can you help us there?
That was a question I wasn't particularly expecting, Councillor Challoner.
We can see. Yeah.
The output of this development would be around 49 megawatts. I think in all honesty, it is going to be a lot less than the coal-fired power stations produced. Obviously, this is a renewable energy source, whereas the coal-fired power stations are not, and we are seeking to encourage renewable energy sources. But obviously, given the size of this site, renewable energy can be very land intensive. I'm just seeing if I can find what the power output of Cotton was. So just for comparison, this site is going to have an output of 49 megawatts, whereas Cotton was 2,000. So that's just Cotton alone.
Yeah.
Drop in the ocean.
And obviously the power stations have a much greater visual impact, obviously, and they are far less in number than solar farms are. So given the output of solar farms, they are much more frequent in our landscape, but obviously they have less of a visual impact. But obviously the simple answer is the output is much less.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Challoner?
No, my only comment to that, Chair, would be it just shows the lack of investment over the years into clean coal technology, then we won't have this planning application. But obviously, the question's been answered that it is a small amount that is going to be, it's the visual impact as well, obviously, which John has spoken about, obviously, with the cooling towers and things like that. But the other side of things is a solar farm, or whatever they want to call them, of this size does actually have to have a close connection into the national grid, which is another impacting factor of where these solar farms are being located, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charnsworth, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions at this point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding, do you have any questions?
We had the parish council and also objectors were saying it was going to these panels would cause glare. Is it proven that there would be glare caused from these panels?
The panels are obviously designed to absorb solar radiation and the light from the sun. That's how they generate power. The applicant has provided a detailed glint and glare assessment, which analyses the impact of glint and glare on the railway that passes adjacent to the site, the surrounding road network, and also residential properties. That is a fairly comprehensive assessment. The assessment concludes that there's going to be a very limited impact. So I think my calculations were the nearest dwelling to the site was around 500 metres away, and they're to the northeast on Wheatley Road. And basically the impact on those dwellings would be very limited and restricted to a very small part of the day. So the impact of glare and glint would be very, very limited on surrounding properties. And obviously in the countryside landscape there can be other things that cause glare. There can be water bodies, there can be field coverings that may cause some glare. So the impact of this has been demonstrated to be very, very negligible.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding, any follow-ups?
No, I'm content with that. Thank you.
Thank you. By way of information, the figures that Mr. Crozat were quoting are out on page 41 on the residential amenity. So next is Councillor Freeman. Do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, Chair. I'll come back when I have another look round. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Oxby.
No, thank you, Chairman, not at this stage.
Councillor Quigley.
Yeah, just an issue. It mentioned the category of agricultural land somewhere in the report. I'm not sure whether that's an accurate one or is it somebody's assumption. Can we confirm whether it is 3A?
There's a portion of the site that's 3A, but the vast majority of the site is 3B. Yeah. And this is it's not an assumption. They've actually tested the soil to establish the agricultural grade. So there is a full report included with the application. So the majority of the site is considered to be agricultural grade 3B, which is moderate quality.
Which still would yield a reasonable yield of cereal or oilseed rape.
I don't dispute that.
So we're losing 90 odd hectares of arable land when we're likely to face shortages of home food production in the future for the sake of 42 kilowatts of solar energy. On the issue of glare and reflection, I'm not sure what the angle of the development in my patch is, which is on the outskirts in one of the rural areas. But I know people that live nearby suffer considerable aggravation in periods of bright sunlight with solar power reflecting into their property, and they have to shut curtains or draw blinds in the middle of the day to stop the glare. So to say it doesn't cause glare, I think is a bit disingenuous, but that's just an observation.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one comment. Choosing the site itself. When we look on page 45, and the site's been chosen as a cheap connection to the grid due to the locality. I was just wondering when I read it through previously that why they chose such a big area and why it had to be such a big area. We have had these sort of applications before, which have not been any of this size at all. But obviously it's because it's the benefit to the applicant to choose a site. It says because the infrastructure is already there from the power generated from the grid because of the power station being there already. I just think it's quite a large site to implicate, but I couldn't, according to this, that's the best site in the area. So I'm not sure whether the size of it is appropriate or not. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sanders, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. No questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think I have a question to ask, more an observation.
Okay.
Living in the locality I live in, I can remember West Burton Power Station being built. I remember all the effects of huge employment and buses running thousands of men to work. Now, it's still, if you like, an eyesore, and we do not use the amount of electricity that was required when they were building West Burton and Cotton. But in real terms, does this one need to be as big as it is? It looks, on paper, it doesn't look too bad, but in reality, I agree with Maddie, it might be quite a construction, but that's really all I've got to say, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would just make a comment at this stage. I don't think I got a question, but in terms of the glare from the impact from the glare, the report says that 5 houses might be affected. 3 in Clarborough, or toward Clarborough, 1 in Sterton, and the other one is on Wheatley Road. And they estimate that the glare might impact on them for 15 minutes a day between March and September. So that is the impact that is calculated. Okay, going round again. You might have questions, or you might want to make a comment now, in which case could you indicate whether you want to come back for a third time. So, Councillor Challoner.
Thank you, Chair. It's stated in the reports and also when the speakers about the amenity for public access, walking, and obviously that it's used by people with horses as bridleways. It did state, I'm sure it stated that the only restriction that was going to be obviously put on was some form of deer fencing, and that obviously the accessibility to public access by public footpaths and bridleways was still going to be open to the general public. Am I right in thinking that, Chair?
Mr. Crozat, can you help us?
That's correct. The bridleways and public footpaths won't be affected at all by this development. I think the public may have enjoyed access over farmers' fields with the farmer's consent for a certain period of time, but obviously that is private land and the farmer could restrict access as and when he sees fit. but all the bridle ways and footpaths around the site will not be impacted by the development.
Thanks, Chair. Just a follow bit of a question to that.
Yeah.
Obviously, they stated that they're going to put, i.e., deer fencing, and previously, when solar farms were starting to be asked to be developed in Bassetlaw, we did go and visit one out of our region, and it actually showed you that there was, like within the fencing, that there was still accessibility for other wildlife rather than it being such as roe deer or deer or whatever, for such as rabbits, hedgehogs, weasels, things like that, that there were special things within the fencing to encourage it. And also they did state that because the land that it was on, obviously grass and that were going to grow, so they did allow sheep to graze actually on the land itself. Is this going to be the case with this development?
Mr. Cruiser?
That's correct. The purpose of the fencing is to prevent deer, large mammals that can cause damage to the solar panels and themselves from entering the site. But other smaller mammals will be able to enter the site. They are looking at grassland planting, and that is still possible to graze livestock on the land. And sometimes you do drive past solar farm developments where you see sheep either sheltering from the sun or rain under solar panels. So the land can still be used for grazing purposes. So you are correct in what you've stated there, Councillor Challoner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Charlesworth, any questions?
I have no questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding, any further questions?
No further questions or comments. Thank you.
Or comments. Okay, thank you very much for letting me know that. Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, just on page 29 about the archaeology of this Roman road. Has it been properly surveyed? Have they done the homework on it? It says it is not to be, but it was not considered sufficiently detailed to allow the potential of archaeology. Can you explain why it's not being looked into? It's on the Wheatley Road.
Yeah, so we use Lincolnshire Archaeology to provide us with specialist advice in this respect. So initially, the applicant hadn't provided any particular detail in respect to the site archaeology. So we expressed concerns to the applicant, and they actually went away and did a more detailed heritage assessment and actually carried out a geophysical survey on the site. And the archaeology consultants that we use are now satisfied that the information provided is sufficient to assess the proposal and demonstrate that the development wouldn't have a detrimental impact on archaeology, subject to a safeguarding condition being imposed on any permission.
Thank you. George, do you want to come back, Councillor Freeman?
No, as long as they've done the work and it's not ruined anything important. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Oxby, any further questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. No questions and no further points to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Quigley. Any further questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Just the issue again about, was this an arable farm? I believe it was. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe it was an arable farm and not a stock farm.
That's correct, yes.
So we are losing, as I said earlier, arable land, and we're talking about proposing to have grazing sheep and animals interspersed with the solar panels, which will be adding to the greenhouse gas production. So that we seem to have two things that go against the proposal. One is the fact that we're losing arable cereal land, and secondly that if we allow grazing animals, we're going to be adding to the greenhouse gas situation, which is not what renewable energy is all about.
Sorry, Chairman.
Yes. Well, could I just come in there? Because when I walk the site, Councillor Quigley's right. Most of it is down to arable, but there is also some sheep farming going on. Okay, so back to you, Mr. Krozak, if you wanted to add anything else.
Just in terms of the loss of agricultural land, obviously it is for a temporary period because these solar farms have a limited lifespan. It's 30 years, which isn't particularly temporary, but it's not.
Most of us will be getting buried by then.
Councillor Quigley, please can you let the officer answer the question, please?
It's not as though it's a built residential development, for example, which will stand on the site for in excess of 100 years potentially, and we'll possibly never see the site revert back to agricultural again. A solar farm of this size obviously does require a very large land take. I can't think of any brownfield sites that are currently available in the district that would allow for a solar farm of this size. Obviously, there's the former power station sites that are going to be redeveloped in the future. But as of yet, for example, Cotton Power Station isn't available for redevelopment. In terms of the size of the solar farm proposed, yes, we did see a lot of smaller solar farm applications around the country previously. It's my understanding that those solar farms were viable because of government grants and certain feed-in tariffs. Since all those grants have been ceased, it's my understanding the requirement for solar farms to become viable has led them to be much larger, which means that obviously the land take is much bigger, and that's why we're seeing an application of a solar farm of this scale.
Did you want to come back, Councillor Quigley?
Thank you. No, I think I've made my points. I don't really need to reiterate them, and I don't need to come back again. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Richardson.
No further questions or comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders.
No questions, Chair, and no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Tomlinson.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, I haven't got a question, but the issue of the Roman road, of which they talk about, is a very, very important road. It deserves probably more than a one-line mention, running between Lincoln and Doncaster. Anyone who's an amateur historian will find out that King Harold went that way to the Battle of Hastings, and of course Dick Turpin, a distant relative of mine, used to frequent the area. But that's really just a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. There were some councillors who didn't say they didn't want to come back. So just for the just to be certain, I will call those to see if they want to make any concluding comments. Councillor Challoner, did you want to say anything?
No more further comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Charlesworth.
No more further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
No further comments, Chair.
Councillor Tomlinson, did you want to say anything more?
No further comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll try and summarise what's been a sort of interesting discussion, I think. the survey from the villages. It's very interesting, wasn't it? In that people were generally in favour of green energy, but then people begin to sort of question and get concerned about their commitment when, just like we all do, when that commitment might impact on us in a way that perhaps we hadn't foreseen. The community were concerned about the loss of agricultural land, which, as Mr. Krozak indicated, is a temporary loss. People were concerned about flooding, although the flood agency says there is no risk. People were concerned about the visual impact, and we had our own visual impact. We had our own visual impact assessment done, which concurred with that of the developer. People are concerned about various environmental impacts on wildlife, deers and owls and so forth. But in the report it says that the Notts Wildlife Trust support the application, and so do Natural England, and so does the County Council Public Rights of Way officer. Our planning officer, as was said, is in support of the application because it makes a positive contribution to providing clean energy generation, which will help to cut greenhouse gases going forward. The officer also points out that none of the statutory consultees object to the proposal. Further, the officer quotes paragraph 154 of the National Planning Framework, which says all renewable energy proposals should be supported if its impacts are or can be made acceptable. The officer's view is that the impact of this solar farm can be made acceptable. And I guess that's the issue for us tonight. So we will, sorry, there's one final point about the archaeology. The archaeologist doesn't raise any objections, and I think there is a condition in there that should, during the construction, archaeological findings are found, that would lead to further investigation. Okay, so we shall move to the vote. Councillor Challoner.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Charlesworth.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Oxby.
Thank you. For.
Councillor Quigley.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
For.
Councillor Sanders.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For.
Thank you. And I too support the application. So that application is granted. Thank you very much for everyone's contributions. Okay, so we will move on to the next application, and I believe that Councillor Challoner will be leaving us for the rest of the meeting because of an interest in this matter. Thank you very much, Dave, for your attendance.
Right, thank you, Chair, and good night to everybody. Hope the meeting goes okay. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Can you just bear with me whilst I find my prompt, please? All right, here we go. So the second application is for full planning permission for the erection of 120 dwellings with garages and or parking spaces, together with associated roads, sewers and infrastructure on land off Essex Road, Burcoats. This can be found on pages 53 to 79 of the agenda. But before I go on, can I just double check that councillors Brand and Schuller haven't joined us?
No, they haven't, Chair.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much then. So, Mr. Krozak, your slides are up already, and I'd like you to speak to this application, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Full planning permission is proposed for the erection of 120 dwellings on land off Essex Road in Burcoats. Access to the site will be taken from the junction of Essex Road, White House Road, Droversdale Road. Page 55 of the report sets out that the site benefits from an extant outline planning permission for 150 dwellings that was granted in May of 2019. The site is open greenfield land which lies to the northeastern part of Burcoats, directly adjacent to the built form of the village. This slide shows the application site outlined within red. A public footpath runs along the length of the western boundary of the site, and a footpath also runs parallel to the northern boundary of the site, further to the north. This slide shows the proposed layout of the site. It's proposed to provide a mixture of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties as set out on page 54 of the report. Access is proposed to be taken from Essex Road, White House Road, Droversdale Road to the south, and the applicant proposes a footpath to the northern site boundary that would link to the path to the west through to the path to the north. It's proposed to provide an area of landscaping to the northeastern corner of the site, together with the balancing ponds for the sustainable urban drainage system for the scheme. This slide shows the proposed access arrangement to the site. So the carriageway would be realigned and the priority would be changed. So White House Road and Essex Road would now have priority junctions onto Droversdale Road, which would link to the north to the site. This slide shows a typical 2-bedroom property as proposed. This is an example of a 3-bedroom property proposed, and another 3-bedroom detached property. This slide shows an example of one of the 4-bedroom detached properties proposed. Moving on to the site itself, this is a photograph looking north up Galway Road with the application site behind to the west. This is a photograph within the site and looking northeast towards the rear of the properties on Galway Road and Galway Avenue. This slide shows a photograph looking north towards Plumtree Way Industrial Estate and shows mature trees on the western boundary of the site. This is a view looking south towards the access point into the rear of Singh's Food and Booze store. A view looking north along the public footpath, which runs along the western boundary of the site. This is a view of the site access in the corner of Droversdale Road, Essex Road, and it's looking north, and you can see the local convenience store on the right hand side of the picture there. So moving on to the report itself, consultee comments are in the report between pages 57 and 59, and it must be noted that Natural England and Doncaster Council have objected to the scheme for the reasons outlined within the report. 7 letters of objection have been received, and the matters raised are set out on pages 59 and 60 of the report. The local member for the area has also objected to the scheme, and the comments I do apologise. That's there hasn't been any objection from the local member in respect to this scheme. Moving on to the principle of development, the report makes it clear that the scheme has to be considered under the planning balance test as contained within paragraph 11 of the NPPF, as the council's core strategy policies are now considered to be out of date. This means that the development should be considered under the planning balance and should be approved unless the harm arising from the scheme would significantly and demonstrably outweigh its benefits. The report identifies that the delivery of 127 dwellings on the site will help build a strong, responsive and competitive economy in Harworth and Burcoats, which will help deliver the growth envisaged in policy CS4 of the core strategy. Notwithstanding this, page 62 describes that the principle of development has already been established on the site, with outline planning permission having been granted for 150 dwellings in May 2019. The applicant has submitted a transport assessment that assesses the impact of Sterton Junction and demonstrates that the local road network has sufficient capacity to accommodate the vehicular movements from the development. Nottinghamshire County Council Strategic Highways and Development Control have not raised any objection to the development and have stated that the necessary road infrastructure improvements required to mitigate the cumulative impact of the traffic from the scheme would be funded by SIL. Excuse me. However, it should be noted the council's SIL scheme cannot be used to collect money for the junction improvements, as these are not specified within the scheme. However, due to the historical permission for this site and its location, it is considered that the development would not significantly impact on the highway infrastructure, and as such, a contribution under Section 106 is not considered to be necessary. In terms of the design, layout, visual amenity and landscape character impacts of the scheme, it is described on pages 63 and 65, but it's considered the proposal will not have a detrimental impact upon visual amenity and would be considered to be good design in accordance with paragraph 124 of the NPPF and policy DM4 of the local development framework. In terms of ecology, the applicant has undertaken detailed survey work that has made recommendations such as the retention of the hedgerow to the site boundary. The Wildlife Trusts have not raised any objections to the proposal and are satisfied that the proposed ecological enhancements comply with the requirements of the NPPF. Page 68 of the report outlines Natural England's concerns relating to the River Idle Washlands SSSI that lies to the east of Bawtry. Natural England did not object to the outline application granted in May 2019, and the site does benefit from an extant planning permission. The council's consultees have identified what infrastructure contributions will be required to make the scheme acceptable in planning terms. The requirements are listed on pages 69 of the report, and it must be noted that commuted sum requirements amount to £597,000. The report outlines that the applicant has provided a viability assessment but states the development would not be viable with 15% affordable housing provision. The council's independent viability assessors advise that the scheme is viable with the affordable housing. Given the fallback planning permission required contributions totalling £383,000 to mitigate the impact of a larger development, it is considered the benefits of this development providing additional contributions for fewer dwellings would outweigh any harm of not providing affordable housing. Therefore, having considered the benefits of the development as outlined on pages 71 and 72 of the report, the scheme is recommended for approval subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement and imposing the conditions outlined from page 73 onwards. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And whilst you're there, do you have a summary of pre-committee questions asked by members, please?
Yes, Chairman. There was one question submitted prior to the planning committee, and that related to the impact of the development on the surrounding footpaths. It was confirmed that the development would retain the surrounding footpaths and would provide an additional footpath link both to the industrial estate and to the footpath that lies to the north of the site.
Okay, thank you. We have one speaker tonight. That is Stephen Gamble, who is the agent, and I believe that you are speaking in person this evening. So welcome, and you will have 3 minutes to speak, and we will give you a 30-second notice when as you get to the end, and we'd ask you to wrap up precisely at 3 minutes, please. So Mr. Gamble, when you're ready.
We are still waiting for Mr. Gamble. He's just about to, yeah, he's in the meeting now.
Oh, brilliant. I'll go through that again then. To speak and Mr. Gamble, are you hearing us? Mr. Gamble?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Is it Mr. Gamble?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Good evening. Good evening.
Okay.
Good. Chair, sorry?
Oh, hang on, Mr. Gamble. Yes, Mr. Lavender.
Yeah, so Mr. Gamble's in now. So, yeah, whenever's ready.
Right, thank you. Mr. Gamble, you have 3 minutes to speak. We will let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining, and we'd appreciate it if you would stop at the 3 minutes. By the way, do you have the live streaming on behind you?
It would help if you could either turn off the live stream or mute the, yeah, just turn off the live stream if you're, or pause it. Mr. Gamble, have you done that?
I've turned it off. Apologies. I am hearing a lot of feedback, but
okay.
Okay. Right. Let's start and we see how we get on. So when you're ready, Mr. Gamble.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do my best. Hopefully you can hear me. My name's Steve Gamble. I'm Land Director for Gleeson Homes. My colleague Matt Smith would have been, I have done it, yes. I'm staying very out. Can anybody still hear me? I've turned my speaker off.
Yes, we can hear you.
No.
Assume that we can hear you unless we tell you to the contrary.
Apologies, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not repeating what. I'm sorry. That's in delays, that chaps. Sorry, guys. That's in delay by about a minute. Shall I try again?
We can hear you clearly now.
Yes. Yeah, we can.
Okay. I've turned everything off. I really don't understand it. Right.
Well, we all trust the luck with these things. So, yeah, please carry on.
It's like a minute behind. I've turned everything off. Turn Outlook off.
Whilst we're waiting, does anyone have a copy of Mr. Gamble's speech?
I don't, Chairman.
No. That means we
I'm going to have to try my phone. Chairman, I need to try my phone.
Okay.
Is that possible?
We can if he emails me over
Guys,
a number.
I've moved to my mobile phone. Is that any better?
That's better. Yeah.
Gamble's
speech. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Can anybody? Chairman. Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you. Yeah.
Can anybody hear me? I'm on the phone now.
Yes, well, we can hear you. I don't think you can hear us though.
We can if if he emails me over.
Guys, move to my mobile phone. Is that
Mr. Gamble, are you in the
Yeah.
position to email your speech across to one of our officers?
Hello?
Hello.
It's all in delay by a minute or so. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Oh dear. I don't think this is possible. Shall I email my speech across?
Yes, please. What I will do.
Sorry, guys. I don't know why it's in delay by a few minutes. Shall I email? It's all in delay by a minute or so.
I will adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes, and we'll let Mr. Lavender speak to Mr. Gamble to sort it out.
A minute after myself.
Okay, so we will reassemble in 5 minutes.
It's been
time.
perfect.
Thank you.
I think this is possible. Shall I email my speech across?
Yes, please.
Castor, can we stop broadcasting for this adjournment whilst we have? Okay.
Well, should we make it 5 to give people a breather? Yeah. Lovely. Thank you.
Go.
Chair, we are live streaming again. Thank you.
Okay. Well, welcome back to the reconvened meeting. You realise that we're having trouble connecting with the speaker. We now think that problem is solved. So, Mr. Gamble, who is the agent for Gleeson's, is got 3 minutes to speak. And Mr. Gleeson, you will have a reminder with 30 seconds remaining, and we'd ask you to complete your speech at 3 minutes. So when you're ready, please start.
Mr. Gamble, you can now speak.
Thank you, Chair. You are 30 seconds, up 10 or 15 seconds behind me, so I'm hoping that I'm actually trying to.
Mr. Gamble, just speak, please, because we can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, the problem is, Chair, I'm saying things. I get that, but I'm speaking and it's not coming through.
Okay, let's stop. Do we have a copy of Mr. Gamble's speech? Mr. Lavender, did you get an email from him?
He has a speech that he has written, but he has no means yet of sending it by email because it is a printed speech. So it would have to, you'd have to find some way of scanning it or sending it through to us.
Well, this is a learning opportunity for us, isn't it? Right.
I don't know if anybody can hear me. I've turned my internet off and I'm now on my mobile phone.
Yeah, yes.
Is that any better?
Yeah, please speak, Mr. Gamble. Please speak.
I've completely shut my computer down and I'm now on my mobile.
Okay.
I don't think anybody can hear me,
please
can
make the
they?
speech. Can you please make the speech?
Oh, dear. I'm sorry, guys. If you can hear me, I think probably going to have to continue without my speech.
We
I can
can
assure
hear
you. Great.
We can hear you, Mr. Gamble.
We can hear you.
Please just make the speech. If we can't hear you, we will let you know.
He has now left the meeting.
Oh, right.
I can try and get him back, or.
Well, I need to perhaps take some advice here from our solicitor, because obviously he did want to speak. He did try. He did say at the end, just proceed without him. So, Mr. Wormald, is that sufficient authority for us to continue to make this a legal and honest decision, whatever we come to?
Well, I think if we perhaps just give him one more try, I mean, we could hear him if it's just communicating to him that he can actually make the speech instead of apologising for not being able to.
Yes.
And another suggestion, maybe James, if he could phone you, and is there a way that you could put him on speaker and get him through to speak that way from your phone?
Sure. I think Mr. Gamble's back in the lobby.
Okay, trying in one more time.
Yeah.
Mr. Lavender, anybody?
Yes, we can hear you.
Please just make the speech, sir.
Thank you. Chair, my name is Steve Gamble, and I'm Land Director for Gleeson Homes. My colleague Matt Smith, who dealt with this application, is on leave, and so I'm relaying this message to you. We certainly are living through strange times, and in March, Gleeson closed its 70-odd live sites across the north of England. But I'm happy to say the sites have now reopened and building has recommenced in a COVID-safe manner. So Gleeson specialise in the provision of entry-level housing aimed at first-time buyers, giving customers at the lower end of the housing market a chance to afford to buy their own homes. The proposal before you is for the development of 120 such homes, and we take special care in ensuring selling prices are affordable for young first-time buyers. On this development, we intend to sell new houses with a starting price of around £125,000 for a two-bed family home. The new Help to Buy scheme coming in on the 1st of April 2021 will allow first-time buyers using the scheme to purchase our two-bed at Essex Road with a mortgageable sum of around £93,000, making it affordable to a working couple on the minimum wage. The weekly cost of this Help to Buy mortgage will be in the region of around £70 a week, more affordable than renting. We intend all our houses at Burcoats to fall below the new regional Help to Buy cap, ensuring 2, 3 and 4 bed properties are truly affordable. Gleeson sold over 85% of our houses last year to first-time buyers. Following the pandemic, Gleeson are determined to focus on selling not only to first-time buyers, but also to those that fit the government's key worker definition. The people have done so much to keep this country safe. So to do this, Gleeson have issued our initial key worker priority programme, which allows 48 hours priority to reserve a plot ahead of the general public and 6 months of paid mortgage. It is our intention going forward to prioritise these people, and our hope is that we sell around 3/4 of our future sales to these people. Historically, the new government's definition of key workers have made up about 2/3 of our purchases. Gleeson will also roll out our Community Matters programme on this site, covering a number of initiatives from apprenticeships to sponsorships of local junior sports team annually. And I'm pleased to confirm Gleeson do not sell homes to landlords or allow our purchasers to sublet. This ensures our homes are sold to those who actually need them. So the development will see an investment of around 10 million by Gleeson, and experience tells us around a third of this will be spent on wages, with a large proportion staying in the local economy. So I hope that in these difficult times, this first-time buyer-led low-cost home ownership scheme is supported by members. Finally, I'd like to thank the officers for their timely and professional dealings with our application. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Mr. Gamble was the only speaker, so I will now go around members and first of all invite any questions. Councillor Charlesworth, you're first on the list.
I've no questions, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
I just one question regarding Natural England over the insufficient information over the River Idle. Could you tell us anything further on this, please?
Mr. Crozat.
The River Idle Washlands SSSI lies to the east of Bawtry. So to the east of Bawtry towards Newington, on the River Idle there. Natural England raised no objections to the proposal when it was considered and approved in May of last year, but have now raised concerns that they have insufficient information to establish the potential impacts of the proposal on that SSSI. Obviously, the extant planning permission is a material consideration in the determination of this application, and we feel that a reduction in the dwelling numbers by 30 has a lesser impact on the SSSI than the previously approved 150. So as officers, we didn't feel it was necessary to request further ecological assessments, and we do feel that the application would have a lesser impact than the already approved development.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor Fielding?
No, thank you for that clarification.
So, Councillor Freeman, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have. Just one. Has there been any archaeological movement on that site? Because I can't find it in the papers.
Councillor Freeman, generally we'd consult with Lincolnshire County Council Archaeology where there's where we know there's potential for archaeology. So there hasn't been any consultation in this instance, but they do receive our weekly list of planning applications received. So whilst they don't get a direct consultation, they are aware of all the planning applications we're receiving. And if they do have any concerns, they would flag them directly with us, even though they haven't had a formal consultation.
Can I just come back on that, please?
Yeah, sure.
I know there's quite been a lot of from last war. There've been a lot of Air Force and Army and even a prison camp round Harworth. So I just wondered if that was anywhere near the site that was on the cards, sort of thing.
No. Mr. Crozat?
I'm not aware of the location of that site, Councillor Freeman, so I wouldn't be able to comment. But as I stated, the archaeology team at Lincolnshire County Council are directly engaged by us, and they do receive all our planning applications. So a site of this scale, they would have a review mechanism where they do have a look at the site and any potential archaeology. And they haven't flagged that up with us. It is a part of our agreement with Lincolnshire County Council that they do that. So they haven't done that in this instance. So we're satisfied there isn't any potential archaeological impacts here.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay. Councillor Oxby, do you have any questions?
Yes, please, Chairman, if I may. Two, if I may, please. The first one, just put in, thank you, just put in the public domain, something that Mr. Crozak mentioned to me yesterday when I did speak to him. And can we just confirm that if this application tonight is declined, then the original one with 150 properties does still stand and would be live?
Yes, that is the case, Councillor Oxby. That permission is extant.
Thank you, John, for that. The second one is, I think I heard you correct, John, in your submission, in your introduction, say that on the affordable housing, that the developer felt or believed that it wouldn't be viable with the affordable housing element, but our own advice was that it is viable. Is that correct, Chairman?
That's correct.
Thank you. My concern then, Chairman, is that, and there's been no viability study offered, I understand, and on page 57 under BDC strategic housing comments, it states that if any affordable housing element is to be reduced, and never mind done away with altogether, if it's to be reduced, it should be supported by a full and open viability study. And obviously I take it we've not had that. My concern, Chairman, is not that this developer would do it, but my concern is that if a permission is given tonight for 120 with the prerequisite for 15% affordable, which I personally support and think is right and proper, my concern would be that a couple of months down the road, we'll see what some developers are prone to doing, and that is they'll come back and say that the viability study says that they can't afford to do it. That's my only area of doubt, Chairman, about this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quigley, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I mean, the answer is that we've already given permission 150, and we're really hog-tied anyway. So I think this is probably the better of the two deals. I don't really have any other points or questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. It's the first question that Councillor Oxby said about the 150. Could you just clarify, please, John, that paragraph on reserved matters, is that the same thing that Graham was talking about if we decline and when they could come back at that time? I've read it about 4 times. It might be me that's half asleep tonight, but I just want to apologise for that. Could you just clarify that reserved matters paragraph on page 55 for me, please, John?
So planning permission was granted for 150 dwellings. Outline planning permission, in most instances, outline planning permission would be for up to 150 dwellings. That permission was for 150 dwellings, and the section 106 reflected that there was no up to, and that was the permission. So any reserved matters application that comes forward has to be for that precise number. It can't be for a lesser number, 149, it has to be 150. So the applicant here has applied for full planning permission for 120 dwellings. If members hypothetically determined to refuse this permission tonight, the developer could go away and then make a reserved matters application for the final outstanding reserved matters for the 150 dwellings if they see fit.
Thank you, John. Thanks for clarifying. It was just something I thought. It's the reserved matters. You know, you sometimes forget what it includes and what it doesn't. But thank you. Thanks, Chair. No more question.
Do you not want to come back at the end then, no?
Not at this moment.
Okay, I'll invite you nonetheless. Councillor Sanders.
Yeah, just thank you, Chair. Just clarification, if that's at all possible. And again, it might be me that's misunderstood it. But with regards to the transport situation, is it the situation then that the original application for 150 houses has already been factored into the transport report, John?
This obviously we're not double counting this development. The transport assessment has assessed the impact of this development without the 150 because we obviously, like I said, we can't double count, but it's factoring in all the other developments that are committed in the area, and obviously this development will have a lesser impact in terms of off-site transport impacts on the surrounding junctions than a larger development with 30 additional dwellings.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
No. Councillor Tomlinson.
No questions at this point, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go around again, and perhaps people can indicate if they want to come back for a third time. Councillor Charlesworth.
No comments and no further comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Fielding didn't. Oh, yes, she did. She might do. Councillor Fielding, did you want to come back?
No further questions or comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
None from me, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Oxby.
Thank you. No comments, no more observations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. Just one about the open space with the parks. It doesn't say, it says close proximity to the play area is close proximity to the building. I didn't see on the map how close it was, John. Maybe I missed that. I know they're doing a contribution because we obviously don't build new ones. We're trying to update the ones that's there. How close is that one to the building site on the other estate then?
It is a walking distance. In terms of meters, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm just going to see if I can have a quick look to give you a rough idea. Obviously, as part of this development, the developer is proposing an area of informal open space to the north of the site, and that will link in with existing public footpaths. It's Shrewsbury Road Park is to the west of the site, and from the site entrance, it's a short walk down White House Road. So it's just a residential road, and I'd probably say it's less than 500 metres away.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, John. Thanks, Chair. No more questions.
Or comments?
No comments. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Councillor Sanders.
No further questions or comments, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tomlinson.
Mr. Chairman, no further comments or questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think that means Councillor Freeman, did you want to come back?
No, Chair, I don't want to come back, no.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much then. Mr. Crowd, do you want to make any concluding comments?
Sorry, Councillor Bidwell, was that addressed to me?
Yes,
my connection broke up slightly. Yeah. Apologies. Just clarification on the viability of the scheme. There are viability assessments that are publicly available on the website. We have published them in accordance with our viability protocol. Obviously, we did consult with an independent assessor on the submitted viability scheme from the applicant. But the difference in our independent assessor's view and the applicant's view, obviously the applicant has just spoke to the fact they deliver a low cost market product that allows affordable first home ownership, whereas independent viability assessors have to look at benchmark land values and also gross development value. So their comparables would be with other developers who are delivering a more mid to high range product. So developers that aren't delivering below cost properties. So the gross development value of those sites is much higher. So that accounts for the difference in the outcomes there. Our position on this is we would usually certainly insist that the developer provides a full Section 106 obligation in such instances, but this is actually providing a greater Section 106 contribution package to that was provided with the 150 dwellings. So we're actually having a lesser impact from the number of dwellings, but a greater contribution. And it should be borne in mind that the 150 dwellings wasn't going to provide an affordable housing contribution on site. So it's our position as officers that this is a betterment having regard to the extant planning permission.
Thank you. There being no further comments, I will move to the... So, Councillor Charlesworth.
I'm for, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fielding.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Oxby.
Thank you. For.
Councillor Quigley.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Sanders.
For.
Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For.
Thank you. And I too would vote for. So planning permission is granted for this development. Well, that completes the agenda. There is no any other business. Thank you for your contributions and your concentration tonight.